I feel like I'm a little bit late for doing this video, just a little late. I've seen a lot of people kind of do this already, but the All-Star starters should be announced today when you're seeing this video. So I wanted to make sure I got my list out there before the starters were announced. And so welcome to my 2022 NBA All-Star selections. This is definitely a tough year. I even have trouble kind of figuring out who should be the starters because there's just like a lot of guys that you have case for starters, but then at the end, the last two spots, it's also tough to pick those last two guys. But I'm going to go through, do my list. I already kind of have like the consensus starters up here. But before we get into this video, want to make it very clear to everybody that your list is your list. This is my list. All right. You have every right to disagree with my list. You have every right to argue about it. But this is just my list and who I think has played the best so far this year. But there's always snubs, unfortunately, when it comes to the All-Star game. But before we get into it, I'll make sure you hit that like button if you're new to the channel. Hit that subscribe button. Welcome back to TheSlamDuncan YouTube channel. This is my 2022 NBA All-Star selection. So, just to start off, I kind of already put up the consensus picks. Like, if you don't have these guys as your starters, you're kind of crazy, I will say, in my opinion. So, let's just go over this here and just look at just the consensus picks, So, starting in the East, you got, obviously, Giannis, who I think is actually bolted his way up to arguably number one in the MVP conversation right now. Joel Embiid, who I would argue is also probably, in my opinion, at least top three in the MVP conversation right now. Kevin Durant, I know he's injured right now, and it's most likely he will not be in the All-Star game this year, and I will have my replacement for him. If Adam Silver would have that, he gets to choose that replacement. So if Kevin Durant does not play, then I will have my replacement for him. And then of course DeMar DeRozan, who he's definitely MVP conversations, but not where these guys are. But DeMar's having a phenomenal year, and I am very happy to have him as a Bulls fan. But also in the West, Steph Curry. I think this is pretty obvious. MVP definitely at the beginning of the year, but he has definitely fallen off. His shooting percentages have all of a sudden dropped a lot. But luckily for them, Klay Thompson's back, so he doesn't have to carry so much of the load. But obviously should be a starter at the guard. LeBron James, I don't think I need to say much more about this dude because, man, he is carrying that old Lakers team that does not know how to play defense. So this dude right here definitely deserves to start. And, of course, Nikola Jokic, last year's MVP. But the Nuggets aren't doing as great as last year. But, honestly, I mean, no Michael Porter Jr., no Jamal Murray. They're missing some other pieces. Like, Jokic, it's incredible when you watch Jokic when he's on the floor and then when he's not on the floor, like just the difference between the Denver Nuggets team. It's hard to take him off the floor if you're Michael Malone because that dude is basically your entire team because he does everything for the Denver Nuggets. But I want to start off by finishing off the starters, obviously, and then talk about my reserves, and then we'll get to the candidates or the replacements at the end here. So I want to start out with the East because I just kind of feel more confident with the East because I think the West, there's some serious arguments for a lot of players. But the last starter for the East, at least for me, I think you should all know this because I am a Bulls fan. It is, for me, Zach Levine. I do not think he's going to start, though. I do think Trae Young's going to get that last starting position, which I disagree with that because I like to reward winning. And if you're going to reward winning, if you're going to reward just putting up a great amount of numbers and everything, then, there's some people that you should have as in your reserves. But I don't have those type of people. So for me, I'm like, hey, I reward winning. Levine's been overshadowed by DeMar this year, but I think Levine's having an incredible year yet again. So for me, again, just the Bulls fans saying, like, I think Zach Levine deserves that last guard position. I don't know why DeMar's a guard. He's definitely a forward, but he's for some odd reason listed as a guard. He's obviously going to be the main guard, but then, it's probably going to be Trae Young as the second guy. So speaking of Trae Young, we're going to go down here and put him in the reserves. Again, my list. This is just my list. This is not, what I think is going to happen. Or what I think is going to happen. It's just going to be my list here. So Trae Young is the first guard because I have Levine starting. And here's the thing, man. a lot of people are like, get Trae Young help, and he's like, well, he's putting up all these numbers and carrying the Atlanta team. Now look, the Atlanta Hawks, they kind of figured it out recently. They were just not recently in a 4-game winning streak, and Young's been playing fantastic. His defense is not great, but everyone that's calling out saying, hey, get Trae Young help, I mean, this is the exact same team that just went to the Eastern Conference Finals. And I don't understand that whole argument, like, he needs help. And look, I think it's very obvious that he does need help, but if you're going to be like, well, he's on such a garbage team, I'm like, that's the exact same team that just went to the Eastern Conference Finals. It's at the very least a playoff team. And he's not bringing that team to that level right now. And he even came out earlier in the season saying the regular season's boring and yada, yada, yada. I don't want to hear that from Trae Young because at this point, they're not even in the play-in. So it's important for them to actually win games. I don't think he's done that well of a job until recently with helping with that. But obviously the numbers are there. So you got to give it to him. Do the Hawks need help? Yeah, they do. But it's also just play better because this exact same team was in the Eastern Conference Finals. Be better. I know they've been hit with COVID, but I also know a bunch of other teams that have been hit with COVID and haven't had their games rescheduled. So that whole argument is just goes out the window as well. But at the end, Trae Young is a star, all-star reserve. So in my opinion, he will make the All-Star game. Everybody, it's okay. The second guard I have is James Harden. He did not start off the year very well, but I think most recently he has played at a very, very high level. And I think at this point he's probably overtaking that role of being the best shooting guard in the league again. People can argue with me on that one, but I thought Levine was the best shooting guard in the league for a while. And again, it's just recent play. But when Harden was struggling and Booker kind of got off to a slow start, but then also got injured, I thought Levine was like, okay, Levine's the best shooting guard in the NBA. But now I think James Harden has overtaken that yet again. And Harden is playing phenomenal recently with the Brooklyn Nets, as Kyrie Irving is still part-time and Kevin Durant is currently injured. So that's my 2 guards off the bench. Remember, the bench has 2 guards, 3 forwards, and 2 wildcard picks. So now we're going to get into the forwards here. The first person I want to talk about is this man, Jimmy Butler. Now, I know Jimmy Butler has missed a lot of games, but in my opinion, the Miami Heat are, they're currently in first, and if you don't give them an all-star and they're in first, then that's kind of an issue. And I know Tyler Hero is kind of, in discussion here, but I think Jimmy Butler has played better than Hero. I know Hero's been obviously more available, but Butler is still the leader of that team, and he's still putting up great amount of numbers, and he deserves to be an all-star in my opinion. And I hope he stays healthy because I like seeing Jimmy Butler when he's healthy. Moving on to the next next forward, I'm going to go with Jarrett Allen. The Cleveland Cavaliers, man, they just, when I'm recording this, they just beat the Milwaukee Bucks, and the Milwaukee Bucks are basically healthy besides Brook Lopez. And that Cleveland Cavaliers defense, everyone keeps talking about like, the 7-footers and everything, but man, Jarrett Allen, I think, is a big part of that defense. And obviously the other credit goes to Evan Mobley, but Jarrett Allen has completely changed that Cavaliers team, and him and Darius Garland with that pick and roll has just been so effective. And I am loving the season from Jarrett Allen, and I will be very, very upset if he is not selected as an all-star this year. He has absolutely been at the center of changing that Cavaliers team, because a lot of people are looking at Garland and having how he's having that great of a year, and also Evan Mobley coming in. I was even questioning how would Allen and Mobley fit together, but they fit perfectly. But I still think it's because of Jarrett Allen. He's the main guy to make this all work together, and he's played his role really, really well. And him and Mobley, man, it's just, that is a scary, scary front court to try to go into the lane to. That is awesome to watch, and I'm happy to see the Cavs doing well. And they're definitely going to be a team to watch out in the playoffs. So Jarrett Allen is my second forward. And my third forward, this is kind of a really interesting pick, because the Boston Celtics, man, they have been absolutely disappointing this year. There's a lot of problems going on with that Celtics team, but I am going to go with Jason Tatum. This is kind of, just because, he's been one of the better forwards in the Eastern Conference. But I'm going to give it to Tatum. Just because I honestly, I would actually like to give it to Jalen Brown, but he's a guard for some odd reason. Well, it makes sense. He does play shooting guard, but, it's kind of weird with, Brown and DeRozan. Like, they play a good amount of their time at the forward positions, but they're listed as guards. I don't understand, but Jason Tatum's going to get it for me. But I still think he needs to play better, but I also think Boston just needs a point guard. Like, Dennis Schroeder's nice, but that dude's just a scorer. They had a Kemba Walker, and that obviously didn't work out. Kyrie Irving's situation didn't work out. And they just need a point guard that can come in, like, honestly, like a Ricky Rubio, just to kind of distribute the ball, but also be able to run the pick and roll. But, Tatum's having a good statistical season. Wins, but yeah, at the end of the day, it's like, who else are you going to pick at the 4 position when you're looking at winning? So now we get to these 2 wild card spots, and this is really, really tough because there are a lot of guards, I think, this year in the Eastern Conference that deserve it. I mean, I just mentioned Jalen Brown, but he is not on my list. But the first one I want to put up is Darius Garland. I mentioned how I think Allen's like the big guy that has changed the Cleveland Cavaliers, and I think that still stands pat. But Darius Garland has improved dramatically this year, and I think he 100% deserves to get in. There is a lot of conversations between him and LaMelo Ball of like who should get in, but in my opinion, I think Darius Garland deserves it. Again, I reward winning first, so I look at Darius Garland and I'm like, yeah, I think this man has played better than LaMelo Ball. Also, the Cavaliers have played better in general, so I'm gonna give Darius Garland the nod, and he has played really, really well this past month. So props to Darius Garland because. I actually wanted the Bulls to pick him, but he was unfortunately off the board and the Bulls picked Kobe White, obviously. But I'm happy to see Darius Garland thriving right now, and I think he deserves to be an all-star. Last one here. This is going to be kind of hard to pick because I mentioned LaMelo, right? I mentioned Jalen Brown. Another person I think 100% deserves to be in it, but is just not going to make it is Domantas Sabonis. Obviously, due to his record, like I said, I reward waiting first, but Sabonis is having a phenomenal year. 19 points, 11 rebounds, I think 6 assists, somewhere around there. But the last one I'm going to go with is Fred VanVleet. I watched King of the Fourth Quarter and his, all-star selections, and Fred VanVleet wasn't really on my radar. And then my friend David posted about Fred VanVleet on his Instagram and how well he's playing. And, I was initially, I'm like, I like Fred VanVleet. I've always loved him, but like I don't know if he deserves to be an all-star this year. And then all of a sudden, after I had that thought, he had an incredible run, and basically then solidified his all-star case. And I'm gonna give it to him this year. The Raptors most recently, thanks to Pascal Siakam finally finding himself again, and then finally starting to get healthy. They're playing pretty good, and I just watched my Bulls win against them, but the Bulls almost blew it. But Fred VanVleet did not play in that game, but I've been watching Fred VanVleet. I've been paying attention, and I think he deserves to be an all-star this year. So that is my all-star, my all-stars for the Eastern Conference. Here's your starters with Giannis, Embiid, Durant, DeRozan, Levine, and then you got the reserves with Young, Harden, Butler, Allen, Tatum, Garland, and VanVleet. So that is my picks for the Eastern Conference, and now we're going to move over to the West here. So I only had 3 people consensus for the starters in the West. Now, I think there is definitely a 4th consensus most recently, as I do think Ja Morant has officially taken that leap and should be starting. I mean, there is definitely a case for Donovan Mitchell. I love Donovan Mitchell, and I've always told people that I watched Donovan Mitchell when he was going through that whole draft process, and I told people that, hey, Mitchell's going to be good. You can ask David that question, and he ended up being very, very good. I didn't think all-star, but I'm like, Mitchell's going to be a good player. Now, the thing is Mitchell is currently in concussion protocol. The Jazz kind of had a little slip recently, obviously due to some injuries, because Gobert also went out with an injury, I believe. But Ja Morant, man, I know he missed that a little bit of time, and the Grizzlies actually did pretty well without him, but oh my goodness, I think Ja Morant has officially taken that leap to now where he's in the MVP talk. Not, top 5, but he's definitely in the top 10, in my opinion, when it comes to MVP conversation. And they're hanging in there in a really, really top tier, Western Conference when it comes to the standings. Like, it's just top heavy, and the Grizzlies are hanging in there, I think, the 3rd seed right now. So props to Ja Morant, and I think he should be the second starter at the guard position. But there is always a case for Mitchell. Now, here's the thing. Donovan Mitchell did not get a lot of votes, and it's because he's playing for Utah. So I think it's going to be Ja Morant, obviously, taking the spot, and deservingly so. Now, here is the last one here, and this is going to be a really, really tough pick, because I've seen a lot of people, they've put so many different guys up here. I will say, if Paul George was healthy, I would 100% have him here. Unfortunately, he is not healthy. He has not played in a while, and I also think he might not play again this season. He might have surgery. So I won't be shocked if he doesn't play again this season, but I don't think he's playing in this All-Star game. Also, he's missed too much time, in my opinion, to be a part of this All-Star game. So I would have him up there, but he's not going to be up there due to his injury. But he's played phenomenal when he was on the court. But I'm going to go with, and again, this is my list. It's not what's going to happen. This is my list. I'm going to go with Rudy Gobert. I think Rudy Gobert has had a phenomenal year when it comes to his standards on offense because, Gobert kind of usually hovers around like the 12 points and he always gets the rebounds and the blocks, but the dude's averaging about 15 points this year, and I think he's done a really, really good job. The Utah Jazz, again, they started to slip a little bit, but Gobert is basically that entire defense, and I will be that person to say that I overrated this Jazz team because they had the 1 seed last year, but, COVID was kind of a big part of that year. It was a weird year last year. But I also thought that Jazz team just had a bunch of really good perimeter defenders, and Gobert was kind of like, he was getting too much praise for his defense when I thought the Jazz defenders, on the perimeter were better. But I've learned, man, that this Jazz team, that their perimeter defenders are not that good. And it's everybody. I thought Joe Ingles was a pretty decent defender, but he's not that great of a defender. Bogdanovich is not that great of a defender. I think Mitchell's actually a pretty solid defender, but he doesn't try. And Mike Conley's getting older. So the Jazz itself, their defense is literally this guy, and I've learned this year. So that is my bad, and I think he deserves to be here. But I don't think he's going to be starting due to the fan vote. Yet again, he plays for Utah. So I do not think he's going to be starting. But if I had the choice, he would be my 5th starter for the Western Conference All-Star team. Because I think he really deserves it, man. And I've underrated Rudy Gobert for a while now, and he's shown me that no, he is the heart and soul of that Jazz defense, and he deserves a praise for that. And just so you know, I'm a big fan of defense. I think defense is almost dying in this league, and to see a defender like Rudy Gobert is always good to see. So now we get to the Western Conference reserves. I talked about Donovan Mitchell, and he is obviously going to be a reserve for me. And I just, I am always so impressed with Mitchell because he came in his rookie year and just played phenomenal. I think he is unfortunately kind of plateaued to where he's going to be. He is a smaller guard, and those smaller guards kind of, they're only good for a little bit, especially when they just get into the league, and then once they hit their prime, which kind of tends to be early because they're smaller. So I'm just shocked at how well Mitchell has grown. But I hope he continues to be this play at this high level for multiple years, because I am scared that this dude is unfortunately gonna take so many hits and then his career is gonna start to die off. But I love Mitchell, man, and I hope he continues to play at this high level for multiple years, and we don't ever see him really drop off until his late 30s. But you never really know. But like I said earlier, the Jazz have had a little bit of slippage, and I think Gobert is a big part of that defense. So Mitchell deserves to be an all-star, but just not a starter because John Morant has definitely picked it up. Second guy is Luka Doncic for me. I will say, man, it has been interesting to watch Luka Doncic not come into shape this year. A lot of people were kind of memeing on him because there's like a picture of him like not doing anything on social media during the offseason, and everyone's just like, oh, it's the offseason, let him live, But then we saw like the dude came in unhealthy for training camp and the start of the season, and then he got injured probably because he was not in shape. But now he's finally getting into shape, and most recently I saw that the Dallas Mavericks, their defense has been really, really good recently, which is good to see. So Luka, I definitely think is starting to get back into his form. I just wish he just came into the season ready because, I think then we're all of a sudden seeing the Mavs maybe up kind of towards like the top four teams, But good to see the Mavs starting to get it together, and Luka is definitely starting to get it together as well. So now we get into the forwards for the reserves. The first person I want to talk about is Draymond Green. I've seen people actually put Draymond Green as a starter. I'm not mad at that, and honestly, I won't be mad at that either. But I personally would have Rudy Gobert. But I know people are like, "Oh my God, 8 points? What is this?" But I'm like, the dude averages 8 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists, and right now, in my opinion, until he got most recently injured and he's been out for a little bit, he was my defensive player of the year. And it is no question that Warriors defense was because of this dude right here. And Draymond, a lot of people think he was falling off, but that was without Clay, and Steph missed a decent amount of time. So when he's not surrounded by those guys, and obviously, Draymond doesn't look as good, but that defense for the Warriors is because of that dude right here. He also runs the Warriors offense, and that doesn't show up in the box score all the time. So he deserves to be an All-Star this year. I know a lot of people are like, looking at the stats, but again, winning, man. I always reward winning. And he definitely deserves it. He's not going to make an All-NBA team. Don't worry about that. But we're talking about All-Stars here, and I reward defense. He's got it right here. Next man I want to actually talk about, I would have Anthony Davis in here, right? But he unfortunately missed too much time. Let's see here. I can't find him. Hello. Please show up. I feel stupid. Oh, Cat. There we go. Karl-Anthony Towns. Now, I know the Timberwolves, their record's a little right now, but I do think Cat has played pretty well this year, and I definitely think that he deserves to be an All-Star again this year. There's always kind of this talk with Cat where it's like, what is he? Like, is he, one of the top centers in the league? Like, would you put him over Rudy Gobert? And I definitely think those conversations are legit. It's just now I see that he's definitely played a little bit better, but I feel bad for him I just don't think that Minnesota, organization is really going anywhere. I like D'Lo, but I think he takes way too many outside shots. I like Anthony Edwards. I think he's going to be good. But, this is the dude right here that is the center of it all. And he's, I think, played much better than in recent seasons. And I'm going to put him up here as an All-Star this year. A lot of people have had Cat starting, and it's interesting to watch that, but, not in my opinion. Last person I want to put up in here is Andrew Wiggins. Now, I will say this, man. A lot of people are like, it's all Steph and Draymond. And, you can make an argument for that. But Andrew Wiggins, man, I have to say, I'm one of those people that are hard on Andrew Wiggins. I am hard on him. There are just so many times in Minnesota, I'm just like, dude, you have all this talent and you're just wasting it. And, I think officially once he got to Golden State, the Warriors treated him as like, okay, you're not going to ever reach this full potential of yours because you don't work hard enough, but you can still work on these other things and not be asked to be like the number one guy, or number two guy. You're going to be asked to be like a really, really good starter. And he's played pretty well this year. And part of the Warriors' success is because of him. So I'm going to give it to him as officially his, I believe, first All-Star selection because, he's played in those years in Minnesota, man. It's like you have all this talent, but you just, But I could tell he's put in the work, and he's become a really, really, really solid defender, which he wasn't that earlier. So props to him. I've been hard on him, but he's done well this year. So the wild card spots, like this is where I just see there's a lot you can talk about here. But yet again, I reward winning, and at the top of the Western Conference, is the Phoenix Suns. So the first person I want to put up there is Devin Booker. I know he missed some time, but that's okay. Most recently, he's been played phenomenal, and he, I think, deserves it. And my God, last season when he didn't make the initial roster, I was like, what the heck is happening? The coaches are ridiculous. So he needs to be an All-Star this year. And then last but not least, his running mate, Chris Paul. You got to have both these guys in the All-Star game because the Phoenix Suns, man, I don't think people understand just how important Chris Paul is. You listen to like Kenny Beecham talk about him all the time, but people just disrespect Chris Paul a lot. And in the fan votings, you can just see it as well, that these two just don't get enough love. And, I think Curry and Morant, they deserve it more to start. But in the fan votings, man, like these two guys just don't get enough. And I think they should. You just can kind of tell that the nation doesn't really understand how good these players are. And Chris Paul, man, his leadership, I mean, at his age at this point, it's just incredible to watch him control the tempo, control the pace of the game, be the leader on the court. He deserves to be an All-Star. But, we can't have an All-Star list without talking about the snubs here. So, like I said, Western Conference is tough, man, because the first person that comes to my mind, and I would love to see him in the All-Star game, is this man right here, Dejante Murray. I'm just, it hurts my heart to see him at the bottom here and not as an All-Star. It just hurts my heart because This dude, man, is playing so well, but the San Antonio Spurs aren't doing too great. Um, but he's played so well. It hurts my soul, but unfortunately, I don't think he's gonna make it this year because it is a very guard stacked conference, and he unfortunately this is not gonna make it due to his record, in my opinion. But another person I want to talk about is Jonas Valanciunas, man. I think he's been extremely underrated on the Pelicans. A lot of people don't talk about him. Everyone's like, oh, Ingram and Zion hasn't even played. But Valanciunas, man, has played phenomenal this year. And I don't think people are really recognizing it. You can talk about Deandre Ayton, obviously, but I personally do not have him up there. I think you need to have these two guys first, and then you could talk about Ayton, but even then, I wouldn't even put Ayton over any of these guys that I have. And, you can make an argument for some other guys that you would put over Ayton as well. So, yeah, that's kind of, the main candidates, I think, for, like, snubs. Obviously, Brandon Ingram's a dude. We could talk about Damian Lillard, but I think Lillard, just due to now his injury and him being out for a while. Also, the Blazers have not played too good, and obviously, he's out. But Lillard's having a pretty down year, so I'm okay with not having him be an All-Star this year, and that's totally fine, in my opinion. But honestly, I mean, that's kind of it. I know people want to talk about Anthony Edwards, but I don't think he's going to make it. I don't think, like, if he doesn't make it, he's not as much of a snub as, like, these guys, in my opinion. So that's my snubs for the West. Kind of tough. Like I said, Paul George would be up there if he wasn't injured. But other than that, I mean, I think these are the main guys that have a serious case here. Now, for the East, there are definitely some guys. I mentioned Jalen Brown. I think Brown has played pretty well, but yet again, the Boston Celtics, man, there's some serious issues going on in that organization. But he is unfortunately going to be snubbed, in my opinion. I do think these two guys have played better. I know statistics say otherwise, but these two guys, I think, have played better. So it's unfortunate for him, but he is going to be snubbed. Talked about LaMelo a little bit earlier, but a lot of people, I don't think, understand how good Darius Garland is. Because, the Ball brothers, they just get so much attention, and I just don't think they should. But, LaMelo started out pretty well. And look, man, I think he's played pretty good this year. I just don't think that he has played better than Garland or any of the other guards I put ahead of him. He will get there. Don't worry. LaMelo is going to get there. Don't freak out about that. He is going to get there. So please do not worry about that. Next I have is Drew Holiday. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, if Kevin Durant is not able to play, which I don't think he's going to be able to, it doesn't matter what position the replacement is. So it doesn't have to be a forward. So in my opinion, it's going to be Drew Holiday. I would like to see Drew Holiday picked as that as the replacement, because the Milwaukee Bucks, Chris Middleton is usually looked as the second guy, but until recently, like, Chris Middleton picked it up recently, but throughout the season he hasn't been that good. I think Drew Holiday really showed when Giannis was in protocol that he is kind of been the second dude for most of this year. Now, obviously, he went into protocol, and then Chris Middleton stepped it up. But throughout the first half of the year, I thought Drew Holiday was the second dude on that Bucks team, and he has played really, really well. Unfortunately, he's not going to make the main team, but if Durant is, not available, then I think he should be then the replacement. And then I would then have either Butler or Allen be then the guy to go into the starting lineup, but it's probably going to be Tatum, just because that's how it goes. But other person I want to talk about is Miles Bridges, man. Miles Bridges has improved so much, and I'm happy he bet on himself. But I do not think he's going to make it, unfortunately. But he has improved a lot, and I'm happy for him. It's really good to see that he has improved. And it was always interesting with Miles Bridges, because it's weird with him and Mikal being the same draft class and everything. And Mikal, what Mikal is going to be. 3-and-D, playing a big role for that Phoenix Suns team. But Miles, I was like, he doesn't really have that defense, but he can play the 3-4. Don't really know what he is besides an athletic finisher. But then now he has shown that he is much more than that. I'm happy to see that, but unfortunately he will not make it, in my opinion. And the last person I want to really talk about is Domantas Sabonis. Again, Sabonis, his numbers, man, are crazy for being on that bad of a team for Indiana, and he's still putting up these numbers. It's pretty incredible, but he unfortunately is not going to make it due to his record one, which it's not really his fault, but also the other guys around him, they, I think, had better seasons. So he will not make it on my list, but he could make it on other people's lists. I will just mention quickly Kyle Lowry, but I think we have to talk about Butler first. Bam missed a lot of time, so if you want to talk about second player for the Heat, I think you actually want to talk about Hero. But I know a lot of people love Kyle Lowry, and I like him too, but not this year. Unfortunately, just not this year. So that is my 2022 All-Star selection. So you can just look again at my starters here for the West, reserves for the West, East starters, East reserves. Drew Holiday would then be my replacement if Durant cannot go. And then these are my snubs. I think these are the main snubs for me, in my opinion. And unfortunately, they will not make it this year. Oh, also, I mean, Bradley Beal, I forgot to mention him, but yeah, not this year, unfortunately. I won't be shocked if he makes it, but just like I actually completely forgot about it because the Wizards just had a dramatic meltdown against the Clippers. So I really did not want to talk about him too much. I completely forgot about him. So yeah, these are my snubs and my All-Star selection. So agree, disagree, go ahead. You have the right to disagree with my list. But all I ask is that if you disagree with somebody, then who do you take off? That's all. I think you have to play that fairly. So that's all I have for you guys in my 2022 NBA All-Star selections. Make sure you hit the like button if you're new to the channel. Hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.